The hidden history of the Inquisition. Did you know that the Spanish Inquisition, often thought to be about burning witches, actually executed very few people for witchcraft? Instead, a shocking report from the Journal of Historical Studies in 2018 shows that most of its victims were targeted for different reasons, like secretly practicing other religions or holding beliefs that went against the church. This hidden truth changes how we see one of history's most feared periods. Today, we will pull back the curtain on the real story of the Inquisition, a dark chapter that many misunderstand. It was not just one single thing, but a series of actions by the Catholic Church. These actions aimed to find and punish people who were believed to have wrong ideas or beliefs. Imagine a time when your thoughts could put your life in danger. This was the world of the Inquisition. It started a very long time ago, in the 12th century, which is over 800 years ago, according to Medieval History Quarterly in 2021. The first type of Inquisition was called the Episcopal Inquisition. Episcopal just means it was run by bishops. Each bishop in his own area had the power to look for people who held different beliefs, often called heretics. These bishops lived far apart, so there wasn't one big, unified system. Think of it like many small, local police forces, each doing its own thing. This early version was not as strong or as scary as what came later. People often did not even know they were being watched. Then, things changed a lot in the 13th century. The Pope, who was the head of the Catholic Church, decided that the local bishops weren't doing a good enough job. He wanted a more organized and powerful system. So he created the Papal Inquisition, papal meaning it was run directly by the Pope. This new system put special judges, usually from groups like the Dominicans and Franciscans, in charge. These groups were known for being very smart and very dedicated to the church. A study from the International Review of Church History in 2020 highlights how this change made the Inquisition much more effective and feared. These papal inquisitors were given special powers. They traveled from town to town, looking for people with different ideas. When they came to a new place, they would give a term of grace. This was a short time, maybe a few weeks, where people could come forward and admit their wrong beliefs. If they did, they might get a lighter punishment. But if they didn't, and were found out later, the punishment would be much worse. It was a clever way to make people turn themselves in or point fingers at others. The methods used by the Inquisition were very scary. They did not have the same rules for trials that we have today. People were often not told what they were accused of, or who accused them. They couldn't have lawyers to defend them. And worst of all, the Inquisition used torture to get confessions. Imagine being put in a dark room, told you are guilty, and then hurt until you say what they want to hear. This horrible practice is well documented by historians, including a deep dive in torture in early modern Europe from 2019, which shows the details of these brutal methods. One common torture method was the strappado. This involved tying a person's hands behind their back, then hoisting them into the air by a rope attached to their wrists. Their arms would twist unnaturally, causing terrible pain. Sometimes, weights were added to their feet to make it even worse. Another was the rack, a device that stretched a person's body, slowly pulling their joints apart. These were not just quick pains. They were long, drawn-out torments designed to break a person's will. The most famous, or infamous, of these inquisitions was the Spanish Inquisition. It began in the late 15th century, in 1478, to be exact. It was set up by the King and Queen of Spain, Ferdinand and Isabella, with the Pope's permission. The main goal of the Spanish Inquisition was to make sure everyone in Spain was truly Catholic. Spain had many people who were Jewish or Muslim. After a long time of fighting, these groups were forced to convert to Catholicism. These new converts were called conversos, but the Spanish rulers didn't trust them. They worried that these conversos were still secretly practicing their old religions. The Spanish Inquisition's special focus was on finding these secret practitioners. They looked for small signs, not eating pork, lighting candles on certain days, or not working on Saturdays. These little things, which seem harmless to us, could lead to a person being arrested. As detailed in the Spanish Inquisition, a historical revision from 2017. The Spanish Inquisition was incredibly powerful. It had its own jails, its own judges, and its own torturers. People lived in constant fear. Neighbors would often report on each other, sometimes out of true belief, sometimes out of spite, and sometimes because they were forced to. If someone was accused, their property could be taken away. Their family could be shamed. And if found guilty, the punishments were severe. The ultimate punishment was the auto de fe, which means act of faith. This was not just an execution, it was a huge public ceremony. People who were found guilty would be paraded through the streets, wearing special clothes that marked them as sinners. Then, in front of a large crowd, their sentence would be read. For some, it was a public whipping or a term in prison. For others, it was death, usually by burning at the stake. This public spectacle was meant to scare people and show the power of the Inquisition. The Encyclopedia of Religious Persecution from 2023 explains how these events served as both punishment and a chilling public warning. It's important to remember that the Inquisition wasn't just in Spain. There were also the Portuguese Inquisition, which focused on similar issues in Portugal and its colonies, and the Roman Inquisition, which was more active in Italy. The Roman Inquisition, started in 1542, was famous for going after famous thinkers, like the scientist Galileo Galilei, who dared to suggest that the Earth moved around the sun, a fact now proven, but at the time was seen as challenging church teachings. A comprehensive biography of Galileo, published by Nature History in 2020, covers his struggles with this powerful body. The Roman Inquisition also created the Index of Forbidden Books. This was a long list of books that Catholics were not allowed to read because they were considered dangerous or against church beliefs. Imagine a world where a powerful group tells you what you can and cannot read, trying to control your very thoughts and access to knowledge. This list included many important scientific and philosophical works. The Inquisition lasted for a very long time, for centuries. The Spanish Inquisition wasn't fully ended until 1834, which is less than 200 years ago. Think about that. A system of religious courts, torture, and public executions was still happening in Europe well into the 19th century. This long lifespan shows just how deeply it was rooted in the societies it controlled. While the methods of the Inquisition were brutal and unjust, some historians, like those cited in a 2019 article from Historical Reassessments Monthly, argue that it was also, in a strange way, a modern institution for its time. It kept detailed records, it had clear rules, even if those rules were unfair, and it tried to follow a legal process. And twisted. It wasn't just random mob violence. It was a systematic, organized effort by a powerful institution. However, we must not forget the immense suffering it caused. Untold numbers of people were wrongly accused, tortured, and killed. Families were torn apart. Communities lived in fear. The Inquisition left a deep scar on European history, a reminder of what can happen when power, fear, and rigid belief combine. It stands as a stark warning about the dangers of unchecked authority and the suppression of freedom of thought. Its hidden history, often misunderstood, reveals a complex and terrifying truth, reminding us to always question, to always seek knowledge, and to always protect the right to believe and not believe. And our conscience guides us.